Good morning guys, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me again. In this week's video you join me on a walk across Ilkley Moor in West Yorkshire, and just thought I'd bring the camera along today and you guys just to sort of see what kind of compositions I can come up with. It's a very difficult location to shoot this, with it being moorland. It's very sort of like flat, and there's no sort of features such as lone trees or waterfalls or anything like that. It's very all about the textures in the sort of heather and the rocks, and there are these paths that kind of like snake through, and they sometimes make nice leading lines, but without any sort of light or anything, it's kind of like a bit flat, which it is right now. And it did say that there was going to be some breaks in the cloud later on, so I was hoping for a bit of light to come through and sort of light up these nice golden brown colours, but as of yet there's nothing, so I'm going to keep going. We've got about another 5 miles to go, and yeah, just see what happens and see what I can come up with. So I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so I've finally got the camera out in the bag now and I'm set up for my first composition. I've come across this little group of boulders here, and they're all surrounded by heather, and even though it's dead at this time of year, the browns work really well with the greens, and the sort of colours in the rock as well looks pretty good. So I'm just waiting for some light at the moment, so I'm going to give it like 10-15 minutes. It could do with some direct light just to make those colours pop, and the clouds are breaking now. It's sort of coming and going, so I'm going to give it sort of 10-15 minutes just to see what happens. But yeah, I'm set up with the sort of rocks in the sort of main centre of the image, and there's also this sort of path here in the foreground. I'm using that again just as like a bit of a sort of foreground element. It doesn't really lead you into the image because it kind of goes from left to right, so it's not ideal in terms of sort of leading line or foreground, but I think with the texture in the sort of footpath, it works really well with the rocks and everything and the heather, and ties everything into the scene of the environment that we're in today. So I'm shooting this image at f8, and it's giving me 1/200th of a second at the moment because it is quite bright in the highlights in the sky. And I will be bracketing the image as well just to capture all the detail in the sort of shadows around the rocks, and also the highlights in the clouds as well, because like I said, it is quite bright. Okay, so I'm going to take that shot now. ISO 100, f8, 1/200th of a second. Like I said, I'm bracketing the shot as well just to capture all the detail in the highlights in the sky, and in the shadow detail around the rocks and the sort of foreground here. So I'll put those together, and if they turn out nice, I'll put them on screen for you, and if you let me know down in the comments what you think. Alright, so I've just walked down a little bit further now and come across this nice little group of rocks here. This caught my eye just for the sort of leading lines of the sort of like grasses there that sort of go in, these sort of yellow grasses, kind of make a point up towards the rock there. Again, it's not amazing, but you know, I'm working with what I've got here, and I do like this sort of heather in the foreground. This kind of like V shape here of this sort of red heather that kind of leads you in up to the rocks as well. And it's actually the rocks that caught my eye, the sort of texture in the side of the rocks there. I really like the sort of like I suppose it's these sedimentary layers in the rock really that kind of make up those lines, and as they're being weathered away, they're sort of softened over time, but they really caught my eye as I walked past, and you know, using all these sort of elements in the foreground here kind of leads you up through the image towards those rocks. So that's what sort of caught my eye in the first place. So I've taken a shot of that again. I've just bracketed that again just to capture the highlights in the sky and the sort of foreground sort of shadows here, make sure I've got all the information that I need. I'll put them together and I'll put that on screen for you. Again, let me know what you think in the comments. Again, a quite simple image, but I think it works really well with the sort of textures, and maybe I have to do some sort of creative dodging and burning in Photoshop and bring out those sort of highlights and shadows. But yeah, let me know what you think, and we're going to move on now to our sort of next location. Keep walking on here. Okay, so one of the other reasons I've come here today is to have a look for this UFO landing site, if you're into that kind of thing. And basically the story goes is, there was a guy who used to live down in Ilkley, which is the sort of main town at the bottom of the moors here, and he was heading up across the moors to the next village to visit a family member. And it was back in 1983. He set off about sort of like 6-7 o'clock in the evening, and he crossed the moors, and that night it was really thick fog, so he couldn't really see where he was going. He didn't take a map with him because he kind of knew the rough direction, but he had a compass just to make sure he was on the right sort of bearing. And as he walked across the moor, he kind of got that unnerving feeling that he was kind of being watched and followed. And just out the corner of his eye, he kind of noticed a little figure coming from behind the rocks there. And he thought it was a child at first because it was only about 4 foot tall, in like a costume, this sort of grey figure. And as he approached it, he managed to get like a photograph, but because of the low light levels and the long shutter speed, he kind of like got a really blurry image. And so he tried to get a little bit closer to try and get a better shot, see what this was. But as he did, he kind of lost it in the sort of fog. So he made his way quickly across the moor, and he noticed his compass was kind of like going haywire. It was kind of pointing north instead of south and all that kind of stuff. And then when he finally arrived at his family member's house, he realised that sort of 2 or 3 hours had passed, and he got there later than expected. So he was kind of telling people about it, and they didn't really believe him. So he went up to a hypnotherapist to try and relive that moment through hypnosis. And when he did, he kind of like described this abduction, going onto a ship and all that kind of thing. But I'm not sure if I believe that, but there is a monument here, kind of like a set of circles within another circle within another circle, and you can kind of see it clearly on Google Maps. So I just wanted to try and come and photograph it now, but we'll not be able to see it on the sort of moorland here. As you can see, it's quite flat there, so you're not really going to see it if it's like a flat sort of monument. So I'm going to get the drone up now, just have a look around, see if I can see anything. And when I do find it, I'll put it on screen for you. Probably take a few images, and I'll show you the footage that I get. So I'll put that on now for you. So as you can see there, I found the monument there, and it does look really impressive, does that? You can't see any of that from the ground at all, and you wouldn't even know it was there if you walked past it, but from the drone in the air I could kind of see that clearly. And it's pretty impressive because I had to try and get the drone up to maximum altitude to try and fit all those circles in and get the whole sort of monument in there. But yeah, it looks pretty good. I'm definitely going to return in the summer as well, because I think the heather, when it comes out all purple against the sort of green grass of the actual circles themselves, I think that'll really look good. So yeah, but definitely a bit of a spooky place up here, and yeah, definitely a little bit unnerving if you're on your own, sort of in the sort of like fog of the mist like that guy was. But yeah, so we're going to continue on now. Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see this on this camera, but the light over there in the hills now is looking really, really good. I wish it would come over here a little bit and light up these compositions for me, but never mind. So yeah, we're going to head back to the sort of car park now, and on the way back I'm going to call in at the little waterfall that I've shot before. I didn't include it at the start of this walk because I've been there quite a few times and I wanted to go off further into the sort of moorland area and get this walk done. But yeah, it's been quite difficult over there to find any sort of like compositions, like I said, due to the sort of lack of subjects. I think it's really difficult in landscape photography when you don't have a subject. I find it quite difficult anyway, but I know a lot of people like the sort of big vistas and all that kind of thing, but I do prefer to have like a subject in the, at least in the sort of mid-ground, foreground. It's like a waterfall or a lone tree or something like that. Unless you've got the light, that is. I mean, if you're doing like a sunset or a sunrise and you've got that big vista with the nice colours in the clouds and stuff behind, and that's when it works really well. But normally, especially in flat light as well, you need that sort of subject, that sort of interesting element, just to sort of make the scene work, if you like. But that's my opinion anyway, but everyone's different in landscape photography, and I'm sure you know that everyone's got their own views on different scenes and how to sort of compose shots and all that kind of thing. But yeah, but the sun's coming out now, it's looking pretty good, as you can see over the landscape there. There's some nice sort of like light rays and patches of light. It's looking pretty good. So I'm going to get to that waterfall now, and when I get there I'll put you back on and show you what we've got set up. Okay, so I've got to the waterfall now and I've set up for my final composition of the day. So it's a pretty simple scene really. There's some nice little rapids here amongst the boulders. There's a lone tree there just sort of silhouetted against these sort of bright clouds in the background. What I'm doing is I'm shooting in portrait orientation. I'm also manually bracketing the shot because the dynamic range is so bright. And I'm also trying like a long exposure on the clouds and on the sort of water itself, just to try and get a lot of movement in the scene. I think it is quite a boring scene, you know, so I want to put a little bit of movement in there, especially in the clouds above. I think if we can get those sort of moving above, that'll look really nice and something a little bit different. To get there, I'm shooting at f/16 because I'm quite close to the waterfall. I want to try and get everything in focus, ISO 100, and for the sky I'm looking at about 20 seconds. So it is quite a bright sky, so I've got the ND on as well, and I've also got the polarizer on for the water. And I'm shooting the water anywhere between sort of 1 second and kind of like up to sort of 6-7 seconds. I'm going to blend the two together, the sky and the foreground, the sort of waterfall area, and blend those two together. And then if it works out, I'll put that on screen for you now. Let me know down in the comments what you think. So I really hope you enjoyed this week's video. It's been really good just to get out on this sort of 6-mile walk across the moorland, and I really hope you've enjoyed coming along with the camera just to see what kind of compositions we can come up with. Like I said, it is a difficult landscape to photograph. There is no sort of features or anything, so it's all about the sort of like the textures in the moss and the rock and stuff like that. So I mean, in terms of shots, I've not really got any epic shots, but you can't always get the epic shots when you go out onto these walks into the landscape. You just have to work with what you've got and try and come up with something different. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please hit the like button, and please do consider subscribing. It does help the channel grow. And until the next one, bye for now.